Good morning, friends. Now that I have breakfast and coffee out of the way, now I've got to go ahead and tackle the day. I have one big job to do today and a bunch of small little things that I'd like to get done too. So let's go. Okay, so the big task that I need to do today and I've got to get done is I need to pressure can some corned beef that I started over a week ago. I really pushed this to the line because the recipe for making corned beef that I used says to keep it in the fridge from 7 to 10 days, and today is day 11. So I really need to get this corned beef processed and canned up so it can go on my pantry shelf. So the whole idea and the reason that I did this corned beef was because Stephen was talking about how when he lived in New York, he would go to this diner and his favorite thing was eating this corned beef hash, which is the corned beef with fried potatoes and having fried eggs over easy on top of it, and how delicious it was. And you know, I'd had corned beef one time and it was canned from a store, but I didn't like it at all. And it got me thinking, well, how do you even make corned beef? What is corned beef? So come to find out, I did some research and I found that it is just simply another method, an old time method originally, of preserving beef. And traditionally it is done with a brisket, but you could also use a roast if you don't have a brisket or you don't want like that much meat. And so what they would do is create a brine with salt, brown sugar, pickling spices or other spices of your choosing basically, and water. And after you create that brine, then you submerge the meat into that brine and you let it sit, and that kind of pickles or preserves the meat. And it also infuses the meat with that salty goodness, that flavor that we've come to know of as corned beef. The reason it's called corned beef is because back in the day, in the old times, the salt was called salt kernels or salt corn. So there were kernels of salt. And so it just kind of got shortened to corn. So the name of the beef was corned beef or kerneled beef, but it got shortened to corned beef. This was a 12-pound brisket that I have in here. I did trim the excess fat that I didn't want, and I put that in the freezer so that I can render it down to make tallow when I have enough. So I've got to gather some pint jars, and I need to wash them up and just get everything ready to can. Now I have already inspected the rims of these jars and washed them. I've washed everything. I went ahead and washed 14 pint jars because when I did a preliminary test run and tried the corned beef the first time, I used a 4-pound roast, which is just what I had in my freezer, and I think it filled 5 pints. So I'm starting with 14 and I hope that's enough. I'm just estimating because the recipe that I have didn't really tell me. And I'm going to go ahead and put water in my canner. So I'm going to be filling my canner no more than 2/3 of the way full. And I'm going to be doing a cold pack method because this is cold, the jars are cold. I'm going to start out with everything in the pressure canner cold and heat everything gradually. Actually, I'm going to move this over by the sink now that I'm thinking about it. And this is a 2-gallon crock. This gets very heavy. I put the weight in a Ziploc bag because I didn't really want the brine to permeate the weight. I want to be able to use these crocks for like making sauerkraut or something at some point. Now I am going to save some of the brine though to put in the jars when we pack them. The recipe for this is pretty simple. I'm just going to hand pack it. I just wash my hands really well. And I'm not like over packing. I'm not trying too hard to pack too hardcore. Something like that. I'm gonna give some about an inch of headspace, or at least try. So I don't know if this ends up being cheaper in the long run than buying the corned beef from the store. But the reason I'm doing this is because I know exactly what went into this corned beef. It's done the old-fashioned way. There's no added artificial flavors, MSG, preservatives, etc. It's just very simple ingredients, and I feel more confident serving this to my loved one. And I didn't say earlier when I was talking about my corned beef story, but I told you I didn't like the corned beef from the store. I've never liked it, and I'll never eat it. But I tried this one morning after I canned the first batch that I had made with the roast beef to try it out. I made a corned beef hash with eggs for breakfast, and I actually do like this corned beef. Will not ever touch the stuff from the store still, but this I actually like. There's something different about the flavor and the consistency of it that was really good, actually. So I do like corned beef. I just don't like corned beef from the store. I like this corned beef. So that solved that. And of course, Steven loves it and was in hog heaven, as we say where I'm from. This is not just for breakfast too. We could have this on any given dinner night with some really easy sides and have a nice meal. And that's another reason that I wanted to do it, and I'm liking the idea of it, is, you know, as garden season progresses and I have more stuff going on, I might need an easy dinner solution. And so having these shelf stable means that all I have to do is open up a jar, and 10 minutes later I have some food. So all right, so I have just a little bit left, and I don't think it's gonna fill a whole nother jar. So we have 3 jars left. That means we filled 11 jars, not quite 12, like I was hoping. So I'm gonna try to fit the rest of this in these jars. So if you're new to canning, or maybe you just started out or you're interested, I highly recommend learning. It's a tried and proven way to preserve food. And I've really enjoyed it because it's very fulfilling, you know, because you are preserving food for your family that is good. You know exactly what's in it, and that does it right there. Let me wash up my hands. All right, I have my bands and flaps right here, already washed and ready to go. So I'm just gonna take a clean cloth and wipe the rims of each jar and put a lid and a band on it. And I'm just doing finger tight. You know what I forgot? I forgot to put a couple of tablespoons in each one of these jars. So backtrack real quick. Let me fix that. I mean, I don't know if it's necessary. That's just something that it was part of the recipe. So here I was thinking I was doing so good. That's okay though. We were almost there. All right. So I have a tablespoon, and I have our brine here. So I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons of brine in each jar. That was just part of the recipe that I was using. So So the canning process will essentially cook this meat. It's been brined. It's got all the flavors. And I know that was a way that they used to preserve the meat historically, but I'm not sure how they would eat it after they had it corned. Now, I don't know if they just did a big slab of meat at a time. I would assume so. It wasn't anything like what I'm doing here. And then, you know, they just go out to the, you know, the little place, meat house, or wherever they kept the cured meat, and just slice them off as they need it. I'm not really sure. I didn't get that far in my reading, but now I'm kind of curious. If you know, let me know. Okay, we got that done. All right, so we have our canner here ready. We have our jars ready. I'm gonna go ahead and load our canner. And I'm gonna use these jars after all. I'm gonna fill them with water, put lids on them, and put them as placeholders in this canner so that my 3 jars that are on the second tier aren't jumbling around during the process. So let's do that real quick. And then the last ingredient that I'm going to put in before I put the lid on this thing is some distilled vinegar. I do have really hard water. It has a lot of iron and a lot of sulfur in it. And the vinegar just kind of helps keep my jars and my canner from staining. All right, let's put the lid on this bad boy. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to eyeball getting the lid on evenly, just by sight, so that there's an even amount of space here. And then I'll just finger tighten these wing nuts, and I'm going to do the same with these 2 opposites. It's not too hard at all once you kind of get the hang of it. And then finger tight those, and then these I don't have to worry about because we already have our lid set. We're going to pressure can these at 10 pounds for 75 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and get the fire under this. Now, the one thing about this canner is that if you have a glass top stove, these canners are not recommended for that type of stove. We're going to let that heat up because remember, we're starting everything cold, and then when the time is right, we will go ahead and put our weight on and start our time. I don't know if you can see that or not, but you can see a little bit of steam coming out. Since that is coming out pretty regularly like that, we're going to time 10 minutes, and then we're going to put our weight on. While I'm waiting to start actual pressure canning, I'm going to go ahead and make up some sour cream because we are almost out here of what I purchased. This is an organic probiotic sour cream, so it has the live cultures in it. It's Nancy's is the brand. While I really like this sour cream, I don't like the price tag. And I do want to make my own because I do like the idea of having the live cultured fermented sour cream with the probiotics and everything, because I am pretty big into probiotics and fermented foods, because that is the natural way to get probiotics for your body. I'm going to use this sour cream as a start to make my own. So I'm going to put maybe a couple good-sized tablespoons in here. And then once you get this going, you can just continue it and keep it going in the same method over and over again. Alright, and then I'm going to add some heavy whipping cream, lid on it. Kind of give it a good shake. And then we're going to wrap it in a towel. I just have an old towel here. And then if you have an oven light in your oven, you can just simply put it in your oven with the oven light on, and then anywhere from 12 to 18 hours later, you will have sour cream. It's time. So we're going to do 10 pounds of pressure. For 75 minutes. Our weight just started jiggling, so I'm going to wait until it's jiggling regularly, and then I'm going to lower the heat until it is making that jiggling sound probably 1 to 4 times per minute. Okay, so I have it timed out now. The weight is jiggling about 2 to 3 times per minute, and that's about perfect. So we're going to leave it alone, and we're going to start our timer for 75 minutes. Okay, so I reached my time with the pressure canner, and I went ahead and turned it off, and it's been about an hour, so I'm going to remove the weight. Ooh, that feels hot still. And it should be safe to go ahead and remove the lid, because you can see that the pressure is already gone. No air released when I move the weight. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this lid off. Alright, so everything is really hot in there still, so I'm going to go ahead and let them cool for probably another hour, and then we'll pull them out. Alright, so I think these are cool enough, so I'm going to go ahead and start pulling them out of the canner and onto my towel here. First, here's my canned water. Alright, so there they are. As you can see, they did create a little bit more liquid. So I don't know if the 2 tablespoons of brine is necessary, but they do have a really great color, I think. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you all so much for joining me and spending this time with me. I've had a blast hanging out with you and getting a few things done today inside instead of just being outside. Until the next time, I hope you are well, and I will see you then. Bye.